our global correspondent, Sean-Paul Kelly, is in a whole different part of the world where he seems to be relaxing while the whole world burns. It's an interesting place. So, Sean-Paul, where are you right now?
I am in North Sumatra, Indonesia, and I'm on a beautiful volcanic lake that blew sky high about 100,000 years ago called Lake Toba, and I do believe it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life.
Wow, Toba, T-O-B-A.
You got it, baby, Toba.
And
you know, the really amazing thing about this place is that, you know, to the north you have Aceh, they had a pretty significant separatist movement for many years. A peace was brokered only about 2 or 3 years ago. To the south, in southern Sumatra, is all Muslims. But this area around Lake Toba, they used to be cannibals. And they were cannibals until about the 18th century when Dutch missionaries came in and converted them to Christianity. And it's like they literally traded in their cannibalism, and they were the most feared warriors on the island of Sumatra. They traded in cannibalism and war for Christianity and guitars, because they're like some of the best guitar players in the world.
You got the Tobin Eddie Van Halen over there?
Yeah, he's probably upstairs. Well, he's probably recovering from his palm wine hangover right now, which happens probably every night. But, yeah, pretty much.
You know, Sean-Paul, I was reading your post on it on theyoungturks.com, and it's really interesting because, like you say, one thing that's interesting is they went from the most feared guys in the world, cannibals. I mean, I'd say literally watch your ass, right?
Yeah, they were ritual cannibals. They ate their enemies when they killed them.
Right. Now that's not playing, man. That's serious.
That's serious, yes.
To the most sedate people, apparently, almost in the world, right?
Yeah, they're like the coolest people I've ever. I mean, I've been to 44 different countries, and I've never had an experience where I've just become totally and so easily immersed in the local culture like I have here.
How are they? But they don't do a lot of tourism, right? They're not trying to milk this for money or anything like that. They're just chilling out.
They're just chilling out. Yeah, they don't put this on for show or anything. The place where I'm staying, the guys show up every night with guitars. They drink their palm wine, which is pretty foul-tasting stuff, and they play guitar all night long and sing.
And they watch the monkeys run around, and they got some crabs. Everybody's having fun. So how do they live? They mainly off the fish?
They fish, rice, but mostly rice, and they have they have the most amazing coffee here. Oh my God! It's like literally. I took a moped up into. I'll tell you about what happened the other day on a moped, which is really hysterical. But I took a moped. You know the old joke about mopeds. Anyways, I took a moped to the mountains and stopped in a village where there's, like not any electricity or anything like that. And so people just invited me in, and they made me fresh coffee that they just picked from the mountain 2 days before.
That's great.
It was awesome.
So, Sean-Paul, I want to get a sense of the different cultures here because I'm fairly ignorant on what's happening in Southeast Asia. So we didn't get a chance to do it the last time you were on the phone. So walk me through it here. Go through all those countries that you've been in and tell me what the sense of those cultures are, obviously very roughly, and walk me through the differences.
Okay. You start in Singapore, which is this ultra-modern city, this ultra-modern, very calm, clean place to do business that is a very small place in the middle of this ocean of Southeast Asian chaos.
That's interesting.
You go north into Malaysia. Well, we'll start with Thailand. Okay, you go to Thailand, and you have a very homogenous country. They're all Thais. Everybody speaks the same language. Everybody acts pretty much the same way. It's a very tourist-centered country. It's very beautiful. It's relatively modern. They're relatively wired into the everybody has cell phones, and the internet is very prominent and whatnot. They're very nice. They're very laid back, not very pushy. It's a clean place. But it is different because it's Buddhist. So then you go a little bit further north and you go into Laos. And Laos is kind of like Mexico on Quaaludes. I mean, it's so laid back. Literally, you have to go find a taxi driver and kick him and wake him up to get him to take you somewhere. And I'm not saying they're lazy. That's not what I'm saying. They're laid back. They're just
That's a
calm,
fine line, but I hear
let
you.
the world go by, no problem. You know.
Yeah.
Then you go to Vietnam, and it completely changes. The Vietnamese are like the most wonderful people in the world because they're totally frank about, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage of you. And they're completely honest about it, which I appreciate it because I'm like, game on, buddy. Let's do it. You know? I love to haggle. And the women are beautiful in Vietnam, and it's a great, you know, the whole, we talked about Vietnam. It's a great place. Cambodia is a mess. The whole country's, the inflation problems and the corruption and everything, it's a real, real serious mess. Then you get to Malaysia, and Malaysia is like this just insane melting pot of, you've got Tamil Indians, you've got Malays, you've got Chinese, you've got Westerners. You don't know if you're coming or going. I mean, you really have no idea what culture is going on. But it's still a relatively modern country. The infrastructure is fantastic. And it's relatively clean. Again, that's a relative thing here in Southeast Asia. But then you take the ferry into Indonesia, and it's like the first, I don't know if I can I use the S word on Young Turks?
No, unfortunately we can't.
Okay, no worries. Well, it's an S-hole. Big time. I mean, you get to this first city in Indonesia, and it's like a garbage bomb went off. It's unbelievable. There are rats crawling in the street and stuff, and the cats are afraid of the rats. They're so big, you know. So you take a 4 or 5 hour chicken bus ride into Lake Toba, and you're smashed in, and there are chickens on the bus and goats and coffee beans everywhere, and people are, chain smoking, and they close the windows when it's raining, and so it's just all smoke on the bus, and it's completely insane. And then you come down the hill and you see this magnificent volcanic lake that's like something out of Fiji or Tahiti or Hawaii, and it's just, the people are magnificent, and 7 countries, and you have these 7 different cultures, and it's just, it's unreal how quickly you have these cultural differences.
All right, I got to ask you now the differences between those places specifically. Well, by the way, this is why I love doing this show, man. You find out things. I mean, I'm learning things that I didn't know before. So would you say that Indonesia, before you got to Toba, was the worst of the lot? And then all of a sudden you get to Toba, and that's one of the best places you've ever seen?
Yeah, I would. Again, you have to remember, India is like 10 times more filthy than Indonesia is. And
Really?
that's saying a lot. Because Indonesia is like, have you ever been down to Nuevo Laredo or any of the border towns?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, that's like dirty, okay? And Indonesia is like, Medan, the main port city, is like 10 times dirtier than some of the border cities in Mexico. But then you get to Lake Toba, and it's just absolutely, the water, I swim in the water. That's how I take my shower every morning. I just jump in the lake.
That's great. Now, there was one funny thing that you wrote on the website. By the way, you can find it on theyoungturks.com, but Sean Paul Kelly also, of course, runs The Agonist. So check out The Agonist as well. So, but one of the things you wrote there, Sean Paul, was the men of Lake Toba were saying, well, our women are not really that hot, but at least they're loyal and they do most of our work for us.
It's the most bizarre thing, I think. And look, I've been in a lot of countries, and that's one of the things that I pay a lot of attention to is the status of women in the countries. And the women pretty much run the show here. And they just kind of let the men do whatever, the men just kind of hang out, play chess or cards all day and drink their palm wine and sing their songs all night. And if it weren't for the women, nothing would function around here. I mean, it really is it's that clear cut.
And are they right about the level of attractiveness of the women?
Say that again?
Are they also right about the level of attractiveness of the women, though?
Yeah, they're not the most handsome lot in the world. I mean, I don't like to say that, I really don't. But no, they're not. But the men, they love their women, and they're really straightforward about we love our women and we'd be nowhere if we didn't have our women, which is actually kind of refreshing for a man to actually say, yeah, I'm a lazy bum, and if it weren't for my woman, I wouldn't have anything.
By the way,
You know?
By the way, look at this, right? You know, in America, we got this thing that if anybody gets labeled a terrorist, then they're the most evil people in the whole wide world, and you can't ever discuss with them, and they're not really quite human like we are, right? But these guys in Lake Toba were cannibals. They were cannibals, and it turns out, you know, it just changed the culture a little bit, and all of a sudden you have the most lovely people in the whole wide world. So, you know, there's something to learn there as well. And you got to give it up to Christianity there, because here's one instance where Christianity turned them around, and they stopped eating people.
Yeah, and don't you know? I mean, you have to. There are some historical reasons for why they chose Christianity, because they were really feared and hated by the Achenese sultans and the Sumatrans and the Javanese who were coming north. You know, they really were feared and hated by them, and they decided, hey, this Christianity thing looks cool, and so they just kind of gave it all up. You know, it's a very strange story. It really is. And the other thing I would say, I don't know how much time we have, but I want to tell you a little story about water buffaloes and me.
Okay, that'll be our final one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was, again, riding a moped the other day, and was obeying all of the local traffic laws, which means none. And I was coming around a blind turn, and a farmer just kind of pulled out on his moped really quickly, and he nicked my front tire, and so I went spinning and flew off the moped straight into a water buffalo.
And had that
smack, and had a, you know, kind of a mild concussion, and my ribs are a little bruised, and you know, it wasn't a serious accident, but I used to love water buffaloes, and I'm kind of really grateful for that water buffalo, because if he weren't there, I would have gone straight into a rock wall. So it's, you know, the perils of being on the road. It's a minor kind of semi-humorous story, but nonetheless, there it is.
I thought for sure that after you said you got the mild concussion, etc., you would end it with, but you should see the motor buffalo. Like you did some
the
serious
water
stuff.
buffalo just went and walked off.
All right, Sean Paul Kelly is our global correspondent here on the Young Turks. Make sure you read all of his posts. They are interesting. There's a lot more details as well that are fun on theyoungturks.com and also on the Agnes as well. Thanks for joining us, Sean Paul. We appreciate it.